You know, there's a quiet graveyard that I think many of us keep. And it's filled not so much with regrets, but with brilliant beginnings. That project you were so excited about, that online course, that business idea, they so often end up there. It's this place filled with the ghosts of good intentions. Today, we're going to explore a book that's really designed to help us stop digging new graves in that yard. This is an explainer on Finish What You Start by Peter Hollins, and it really looks at the psychology behind why we start with so much passion, but so often just stop in silence.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll spend a moment in that graveyard of intentions, just to make it a familiar starting point. Then, we'll dig into why we don't finish, looking at both our behaviors and some of the deeper psychological barriers. From there, we'll get practical and build the book's central tool, what it calls a personal manifesto. After that, we'll explore the crucial mindset shift you need for completion, and we'll wrap up with a kind of counterintuitive truth about where motivation really comes from.
Okay, so let's begin by just acknowledging this shared and often really unspoken experience, that huge gap between a brilliant start and a quiet fizzle-out. The book frames this not as a place of shame, but actually as the necessary starting point for understanding what's going on.
Just take a second with this question. Think of one specific thing. Can you feel that rush of excitement you had when you started? And now, think about the silence that might surround it today. So what happened in between? Peter Hollins argues that the answer isn't just a simple lack of passion or willpower. It's something much more systematic. These are the kind of specific ghosts that the book talks about, and they probably feel pretty universal. You know, the half-finished manuscript, saved on a desktop, but never opened. The online course, bought with all this optimism, now just sitting there at 15% complete. Or that notebook, full of amazing diagrams for a business that never actually saw the light of day. Each one of these represents a moment where our initial energy met some kind of hidden obstacle and, well, quietly lost.
And this is the core idea of the book, and honestly, it's such a relief. The issue isn't that you are broken, or lazy, or that you lack discipline. The real issue is that we've been taught to rely on those things, willpower, motivation, discipline, as our main strategy. And Hollins argues that's a really flawed approach. The problem is with the system, or maybe more accurately, the lack of one.
Okay, so if we're going to build a better system, we first have to understand why our current, sort of default system, fails us so often. Before we can find a solution, we've got to accurately diagnose the problem. And the book breaks this down into some really clear components.
The book defines following through not as a single trait, but as a combination of 4 different elements all working together. The analogy is almost like a body. Focus is the head. It directs your attention. Self-discipline is the spine. It's what lets you stand up straight and work even when you really don't feel like it. Action, well, that's the hands and feet. It's the part that actually moves you forward. And finally, persistence is the heart. It's what keeps you going when you hit a wall. We fail when one of these parts is missing or weak.
So according to the book, the reasons these parts go missing tend to fall into 2 big categories. And this is a really useful distinction to make. One category is about what we do, our external habits, our tactics. The other is about what we feel, our internal fears and those psychological roadblocks.
Let's put these side by side so we can see them clearly. On the one hand, you've got inhibiting tactics. These are the conscious or even unconscious ways we sabotage ourselves through our actions. And on the other hand, we have psychological roadblocks. These are the internal stories we tell ourselves, the fears, the insecurities that can just paralyze us. The key insight from the book, though, is that these two aren't separate issues. They are deeply connected. Let's look at the tactics first. Setting vague goals like, I'm going to get healthier, leaves you with no clear next step, so it becomes really easy to just do nothing. Productive procrastination. Oh, this is that sneaky one. It's the habit of planning, researching, and organizing endlessly. It feels like work, so we get this false sense of accomplishment. But its real purpose is that it lets us delay the moment of potential failure or judgment. And of course, there are the easy distractions and just a fundamental misunderstanding of how to manage our energy and time. These are the external behaviors that just drain our momentum.
And then there are the internal barriers. The fear of what people will think if we fail, or even if we succeed. Perfectionism, which the book argues isn't about high standards, it's actually a shield we use to protect ourselves from criticism. Because if it's never done, it can never be judged, right? Sometimes it's just a simple lack of self-awareness about our own patterns. And finally, there's the seductive comfort of what we might call laziness, just choosing the path of least resistance because it offers that immediate ease.
Now, this is the crucial insight. These 2 forces are not separate. They create a vicious cycle. The psychological fear of judgment makes you engage in the inhibiting tactic of, say, productive procrastination. But because you never actually produce anything, you reinforce the internal feeling of being a failure, which then just amplifies the original fear. It's a self-perpetuating loop, and breaking it requires a completely new system.
So how do we build that new system? Well, the book's central, most actionable idea is to stop relying on in-the-moment willpower and instead create a set of pre-decided rules. It calls this a personal manifesto, and it's all about building a better default path for our actions. So what is a manifesto in this context? It's not some grand philosophical document. It's a really practical tool. It's just a simple set of rules you create for yourself in a calm, rational moment that you can use in a future moment of weakness or indecision. The whole goal is to automate the right choice so you don't have to debate with yourself when you're tired and your willpower is at its lowest. It makes the desired action the path of least resistance. So the first rule from the book is a simple but really powerful script to run in your head when you feel yourself starting to drift. It's designed to bring clarity and reconnect you with your original purpose right at the moment you're about to procrastinate.
And the framework is this: I want, I will, I won't. I want connects you back to the long-term goal and its emotional payoff. For example, I want to finish this report so I can have a stress-free weekend. I will is the most critical part. It defines one tiny, non-intimidating action you can take right now. Not write the report, but I will open the document and write just the first paragraph for 5 minutes. And I won't sets a clear boundary, identifying the specific distraction you'll avoid. I won't check my email until this paragraph is done. It links your deep why to a very simple what.
This second rule in this manifesto is a tool for empathy, specifically empathy for your future self. Procrastination is really a battle between your present self, who wants comfort now, and your future self, who has to deal with the consequences. This rule is designed to make those long-term consequences feel real in the present moment. Let's just walk through this timeline. When you're tempted to procrastinate, ask yourself, if I give in right now, how am I going to feel in 10 minutes? Probably some relief, right? The pressure is off. But then ask, how will I feel in 10 hours? Likely a growing sense of regret and anxiety. And then in 10 days, looking back at this moment, disappointment. You've basically traded a few minutes of cheap relief for days of negative emotion. This exercise makes the long-term pain of inaction feel more real than the short-term discomfort of action.
Now this is where it's important to be intellectually honest. A system of rules like a manifesto can be easily misapplied. The purpose is not to turn you into some productivity robot or to punish yourself for any deviation. It's meant to be a support structure. It's a safety net for those days, and there will be many of them when you just don't feel like it. Think of it as a gift from your past, rational self to your future, struggling self.
A system is powerful, but it's not enough by itself. The book argues that it has to be paired with a fundamental shift in how we think about the act of finishing itself. This section is all about the internal software that runs on our new external hardware.
This quote from the book really gets right to the heart of the mindset. We often have this unspoken belief that we need to feel good to do the work. But the reality is that meaningful work almost always involves some degree of discomfort or boredom or frustration. The mindset of completion isn't about avoiding this feeling. It's about learning to tolerate it. It's about recognizing that discomfort is simply the price of admission for growth.
And from my own experience with this, the single biggest mindset shift came from this idea right here. For a long time, I saw finishing a project as a final judgment on my ability. If the finished product wasn't perfect, I felt like I had failed, and this created immense pressure. But reframing it changed everything. When you see finishing not as a verdict, but as the only way to get real feedback, to gather data on what worked, what didn't, and what to do next time, it just removes all the pressure. Finishing isn't the end. It's the beginning of the next stage of learning.
All right, we're now at the final and maybe the most liberating idea from the book. It completely flips a lifetime of conventional wisdom about motivation right on its head.
Most of us operate under this myth that we need to feel motivated before we can take action. We wait for inspiration to strike. But the reality, which is proven time and again, is the exact opposite. Action is the spark that creates the fire of motivation. A small, simple physical act generates a tiny bit of momentum, which makes the next action feel a little bit easier, which in turn builds more motivation. You don't wait to feel ready, you act in order to feel ready.
This quote perfectly summarizes the entire philosophy of the book. We all think the goal is to have more willpower, to be more disciplined. But the real goal is to design a life, a system, and a set of routines that make success the easiest option, requiring as little willpower as possible.
It's about engineering your environment and your habits so that follow-through becomes the default.
So, to make this real, here is your one action for this week. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just choose one of those projects from your graveyard. Take 2 minutes and write down a single I want, I will, I won't statement for it. And then just put that piece of paper on your monitor, your bathroom mirror, or your fridge. Make your intention visible. That's it.
As we close out, just let this idea settle in. The insights from this book aren't meant to be just another thing on your to-do list. They're really tools for a quieter, more consistent kind of progress. And if there's one thing worth remembering, real growth begins when an idea is quietly applied, not loudly admired. The value is in the doing. If this explainer was helpful, a like is always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe for more deep dives like this one. And if you'd like a simple template to help build out your own personal manifesto, you can download the free action plan. Thank you for your time.